Hello, and welcome to Off-Road Consulting's Off-Road Tire Repair Techniques. The first video is assessment. In this section of video, you're going to see a tire assessment. Basically, what's happening is I'm gonna hop out and I look, hey, this tire looks a little low. So that's one where it's a little low, maybe down to 5 or 10 psi. So you can see by the bulge in the tire. And then this tire, you'll see how it's flat, completely flat. If it's low, you could still move at a slow pace. If it's flat, you want to remedy the situation pretty quickly. So what I'm doing first is adding air to the tire, and you're going to see how the tire starts to rise up. So it's taking air. There's not a massive hole in the side of the tire. So now that it's taking air, I can start evaluating where does the air leak from. So I'm listening and also just watching to see. Now I add about 15-20 psi to the tire, and now the first thing I want to check is the valve core. When I aired it down, did the valve core stick? Is it lightly weeping? So now I'm tightening it up and adjusting it, testing with a little water to see if I see any spray or bubbles. So once I have that dialed in, I also want to check the rest of the tire. Same technique. Pour a little water over it, look for a spray or bubbles or anything of the sort. Keep adding air and listen for air to be released. You'll hear the hissing noise, and when you slide your hand over it, you can hear where the pitch changes, so you can tell that way exactly where the possible leak could be. Check the bead, check the tread, check the sidewall, keep adding air till you get to the desired pressure. And then you still want to check it periodically for pressure to make sure everything is good. So it's just going through, making sure everything is good. So here I'm wiping everything down, just feeling around. It sounds good. So in this assessment, it was probably just a leaking valve core. It was a little loose, so I tightened it up. Now, as far as valve core, you're going to see here in a second, I'm going to show what a valve core looks like. That's inside the valve stem. It's that little piece there that helps let the air through. That's a valve core tool, and there's another type of valve core tool. You can use that to tighten or loosen a valve core. In a second, you're going to see also one of the air up, air down tools that can also be used as a valve core tool. In this video, I'm going to talk about tire plugging, and I prefer the A or B tire plug kit just because of everything that's included. It pretty much has everything you're going to need. Now, as we go over here to the tire, you're going to see a sidewall slice, and I'll point it out here, and then I'm going to take the reamer and just scuff up the inside of the slice just so the tire plugs have something to adhere to. Then I like to take a little bit of the lubrication that they supply and just put it there so it allows for the tire plug to slide in and not grip as much as it goes in. Now, whether this is a single screw hole, nail hole puncture in the tread or a slice in the sidewall, the technique is the same. Now, usually a nail or a screw puncture, you could use one plug. Sidewall slices are usually many plugs. And I've had tires where I've had to use 10 tire plugs, and I've had them where I've only needed to use one. It all depends. And again, this is just to get you back to the trailhead, not so you can drive it home. Now what I'm doing here is you can see I'm trying to work the tire plug into the tool that will help it insert into the tire. But because they're so gummy, they're hard to get through the tool. And I messed with this for a little while, and then you'll see the technique in the second plug of how to get it through it a little bit easier. But you can see how it's a little bit of a pain sometimes. But back to what I was saying about plugging. A single hole in the tread, if you put a tire plug in it, you could trim it flush with the tread and it's safe to keep using. You just want to check it periodically so it doesn't leak, but it'll pass inspection and you can go through the life of the tire with a plug in the tread. Sidewall slices and repairs are, for the most part, non-street legal. You are not supposed to drive on the street with a tire plug because of the possibility of it coming out and having a flat tire at speed. So now what you're seeing here is me inserting the plug. I go into where it's sticking out about a ½ inch. I push down on the little plate disc and pull up. Now there's one plug in. Now there's still enough room in that slice, so I have to add a second plug. So that's what I'm working on now. I'm smashing the end flat, and then what I'll do is I'll widen the tool a little bit after, again, I try to work it through. You want the tool to stay as closed as possible, but sometimes it's a fight. And believe me, on cold days, this becomes quite the pain in the butt. So sometimes just widening that up a little bit is a huge help. So there I spread it. Now it slides in a lot easier. I actually did it by hand there. And now I'm going to insert this into the slice, just like I did the first one. Make sure I don't push it all the way in. And now I want to slide that disc down, hold it, pull up. So now it's together. So I want to test it now. So I'm going to add some air to it, see if it stays. Now sometimes the tire plug will be forced out via air pressure. So as you're putting air in it, you'll see the plug start to shoot out. Or you'll notice that air is bypassing the plugs. Then you need to put another plug in. So depending on if you sealed it up or not is dependent on how many more plugs you need to add, obviously. Now this one, as I'm adding air, you can see there's no water spraying. If I had soapy water or some sort of lubricant spray, I would add that just to see. Now you can see there's plugs other spots in the tire. This is my test and demonstration tire, but you can see how big of slices that I can plug. And now what I'm doing here is just trimming off the excess of the plugs. And I've had these plugs in this tire hold for 6+ months of air pressure without issue. So it does work. You just have to watch as you go down the trail that you do not rub that against anything that will pull the plugs out. This section we get into valve stem replacement. So you can see here where this valve stem's tore. You can also see where the metal stops and the rubber goes through the wheel. So what I'm doing now is trimming off the last little bit of it. And I didn't want to gouge the rim too much, so I grabbed a pair of pliers. Now I'm going to pull the rest of it off. Just a couple nice little yanks and you can rip the end of it right off. So it's mostly rubber with a little bit of a metal core. Now you can see that's what's left in the wheel. That's easily popped back through with a screwdriver or a piece of metal, what have you, whatever you may have. And just a quick little pop goes right through. There is the normal hole in the wheel. Now Colby Valve has a really nice setup where it is a replacement valve stem. This is a normal valve stem here. You can see where it's just a rubber valve stem pops in the hole. Colby's is a little bit of a different setup, as you see here. It goes through the rim and then you tighten the wing nut, which in turn locks it in. Now I didn't go all the way through or tighten it all the way down, but you cinch it all the way down and then you air it back up and you're good to go. Here's another type of valve stem repair. It is a new one I just found. It makes it really quick and easy. It's just this tool and you thread the valve stem onto the end of it. Thread it in nice, get it all the way down to the end of the valve stem. Then just lubricate the end of the valve stem ever so slightly. And this little cone tube is the key. Slide it in gently and even, put it to the hole, get it a nice little smack. Takes a couple little hits. It pops down through. Now you're in through the rim. Now you just pull it back up to seat the valve stem. I always give it an extra little movement around to make sure it locks in nice. And then unthread, and you're all set and done. That easy. Now to replace a standard valve stem, you can break the bead using a high lift jack in a vehicle. This works out well because the weight of the vehicle helps break the bead real easily. So you can see how I have it set up. Now one key part here is putting the jack right at the valve stem. So once it breaks the bead, it holds the tire down so you can get into the valve stem without having to reposition. Now I'm standing on the other side of the tire to add a little counterbalance so the tire doesn't stand up. And I'm just jacking slowly to break that bead to be able to get into the valve stem. Then once the bead is broke, which you're going to see here in a second, it's just going to pop, and then it'll hold it down nice. Here it goes. Now I can get in there to replace that valve stem very easily. And you can use a valve stem puller to pull it through, or even just a pair of pliers would work to get it through the rim. But you can see how you can get in there nice and easy without having to reposition. Just planning ahead, get everything ready. Here we're going to reseat the bead. So you can see how the tire and the wheel are no longer seated. So what you want to do is secure the tire and the wheel, but also force the tire to go closer to the wheel. So using a ratchet strap can help with this because it'll push down on the center of the tire, which will force the sides of the tire out. And this can be done on or off the vehicle. Now that it's starting to push closer, it kind of seats it up a little bit better. If you're working with a blown inner and outer bead, it's a little bit more difficult, and sometimes this will fight you. So pushing with your foot, propping it up on two rocks or two toolboxes or two logs can help, because what you're looking to do is push down or in with the wheel to try to get it closer to the tire. And tightening the ratchet strap up a little bit helps also. So once it starts to go, then it's just a matter of air volume and pressure. So now it's starting to go. You can see it starting to seat. So I'm going to let enough air get in that it's not going to pop back off. And then I want to release the ratchet strap. If you air the tire all the way up with the ratchet strap on, then it'll be really hard to get the ratchet strap off. So now that it's getting close, I wanted to make sure there's no debris in the bead. I released the ratchet strap. Now as this is going back on, I want to make sure that that's clean. You can see the tires slowly moving closer. Now you want to keep your fingers out of there because if it pops, it could pinch your finger pretty bad. But you also want to keep your face away from it because that pop of air could spray any dirt or rocks that are in there back in your face. So you want to stay clear, stay safe, watch as it slowly goes back on. And it takes a little time, but here it's going to pop back on. And then once it does, you're good to go. You can add it up or inflate it all the way up to your normal pressure and go from there. It's just a slow, steady, patient process. You can see the tire's still slowly moving towards the rim or wheel. It's almost there, and you'll see it'll be a nice little pop. And now it's all the way on. Removing debris from the wheel or bead is sometimes tough, but what I've found over the years is if you let all the air out of the tire, whether this is on the vehicle or off the vehicle, let it go completely flat. Pulling the valve core is the fastest and easiest. Then make sure that debris is at the 3 or 9 o'clock position so it makes it easier. And then pry down between the tire and the wheel. And then you could take a pocket knife or another screwdriver and slowly work the debris out. Because there's no air in the tire, you get more pliability in the sidewall, which allows you to dig the piece of debris out a lot easier. Take your time, don't puncture the tire, and work your way through it. Steady, simple, clean. You can get all the debris out nice and easy. If you try it with air in the tire, it is very difficult. This is my demonstration tire, so you can see it's been through it. You can see there's debris in the bead, how scuffed up the tire is, how beat up it is. I use this for many demonstrations every year. Different slices, there's a small slice and repair. And then as we keep moving around, there's a larger slice and repair. Now, some tires are better for repairing it than others. That one held well. And then there's another repair here where it's in between the large and the small, but all of these hold air and have worked well. This section is a slideshow of common tire issues on the trail. Here is a blown outer bead, basically from running too low of air pressure. This is a blown inner bead, which can be difficult to find sometimes because you just see the tires flat and you wouldn't think of this right away, but always be ready to look. Here is replacing a bead on the trail in the snow, which can be very difficult because the rubber gets cold, so it doesn't want to move around to where you want it to go. By propping it up onto toolboxes like this, we help force the tire up as we push the rim down to get it to seat the bead a little bit easier. And standing on the wheel can help force that wheel down while that sidewall is pushed up. This is a shot of debris in the bead, just a very common on the trail mishap. Here's a broken valve stem. This is pretty much what they look like regularly, where they're tore off flush with the rim. Then you just pop that piece back in and make your repair. Here's another shot of a broken valve stem where you can see the pieces that are left after they're pulled out of the wheel or rim. This setup has a funny story. The driver broke through the ice, and by the time we got the vehicle out, this is what the wheel looked like from blown bead. Here's another blown bead on the trail that we had to plug the hole and then reseat the bead to keep the vehicle moving down the trail. Here's the hole and plugs from that situation. This one, the vehicle broke through the ice and actually sliced all 4 valve stems. We replaced the 3 valve stems on the blown beads, and you can see here how the valve stem tore. Got those all reseated with a ratchet strap, tightened the ratchet strap down, pushed it to the bead, aired it back up after we replaced the valve stems. We were good to go. The one tire that was not or did not have a blown bead, we actually had to force the bead off the wheel to fix it. So we stuffed the log into the tire, turned the wheel against it, popped the bead, fixed the valve stem, and we were on our way. Here's an odd one that happens every once in a while where somebody runs over a shed deer antler. This makes for about a 3/4 inch hole in the tire, which is very hard to plug. And here you can actually see it on the vehicle. Now this is just a typical tire assessment. Driver had a flat tire. Now he's evaluating why, where's the hole, what caused it, anything of the sort. This tire has just a low air pressure, so that could have been from burping, could have been from a hole, leaking valve stem, anything of the sort. Here's a side-by-side shot where the side-by-side had a puncture. We plugged it, aired it back up, and we're good to go down the trail. This is what the driver actually carried to fix his tires. We fixed it right with a plug and air instead of can of Fix-A-Flat. This spot is a stick was actually run over, punctured the tire, and we could hear the air weep real quick. So we stopped, got the kit out, got it all prepped and ready, pulled the stick out, put the plug in, and we only lost about 2 psi of pressure because we were ready to go. This shot is just to be humorous to say, know when you're in over your head. Now, we'd like to thank you for participating in this tire repair video. If you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us and look for more educational videos coming in the near future. Thank you.